Greetings, YouTube. This is the Garage Autonomist. If you can hear me, well, let me see. I didn't even bring up the chat yet. Let's see if anyone's here yet. All right. If you can hear me, if you ever wind up in the chat at some point, you can just click one, type a 1. All right. Okay. Hey, Jenny. Oh, I was just seeing if anybody can actually hear me. I was just asking for people to type 1 if they could hear me. That's all. Okay, good. All right, good. All right, cool. So Mabasai's in the house. Jenny is in the house. Jenny, I loved your video. I actually, it was really good. Very provocative question about the effects of when people are angry about what somebody does or says in the news or whatever, and you have this situation where people's reaction to it actually helps feed the beast, as they say, in terms of the social media. And you're right. I do believe that people's reaction to it benefits greatly Twitter and YouTube and all of that. And in the same way that people being angry about what Roseanne said feeds the cable news. Like, I mean, they have not stopped talking about it. Only reason why I'm talking about it is because I have a different angle to present in this whole thing, which I'm about to get into. But yeah, that's a good video. So if anyone gets a chance, go to Jenny's channel and check out her video about outrage culture. Let's see here. So this is what I wanted to say. When I was in my earlier 20s and I was politically conscious and my class consciousness had deepened around that time, I remember I had like a random thought about pop culture and you know, particularly in television. And I was remembering how the last time in my lifetime when I couldn't remember when there was an actual representation of regular people in it, like, in other words, working people. And I know I alienate people when I use that term because people don't, you know, they think that they're about to get some big Marxist essay. And I really hope that that's not really what I'm going to do. And you know, the videos that I make, they really don't wind up like that. But anyway, the only thing that I could remember around that time period in my life was the TV show Good Times. Now, we all know what happened with that show. It started off great. It was a comedy. Yes, it was. It was a sitcom, but it started off with really good writing, giving us this very realistic portrayal of an African-American family that lived in the projects of Chicago. The father was hardworking, but constantly found himself unemployed. The mom was working, but she was also still at home trying to manage the house as best she could. And it was just a good show, and the writing was great. And Norman Lear, being the classical liberal that he was, didn't like it when the people that he felt that he was a savior to would express their opinions. It wasn't just John Amos, the actor who played James Evans. It was also the writers of the show, when they all began to realize that Jimmy Walker's character, J.J. Evans, was becoming too much of the center stage of the show. So the issue there was they took JJ and made him the centerpiece. Norman Lear basically fired some of the top writers of the show, therefore intimidating the rest to bow to his will. And the rest of the cast, not wanting to be unemployed, went with the way Norman Lear wanted things to be. And that's what happened. Fast forward, well, not fast forward, but still thinking about the 90s, you had the Bill Cosby Show. Now, on one end, they definitely represented African Americans, but I couldn't fully identify with the show because, being a high school dropout that I was at the time and working in a kitchen and then later a fabrication plant, I was not on an academic track to become a brownstone dwelling doctor or lawyer anytime soon. And I was thinking of, and again, I was only thinking about class around this time. Married with Children, of course, was funny, but that's all it was. But Roseanne, the TV show, had come out. And while I could have done without a lot of the little corny jokes here and there, I felt that the mix of humor and melodrama dropped in made it a very realistic portrayal of what was happening in the other side of 90s America, opposite good-humored office workers and suburban dwellers who were happy wanderers on TV. So by the time that the series was done, I had stopped watching it. Because one, my life had changed and I didn't really watch a lot of TV unless it was like the small handful of shows that I was fanatical about. But we do know that the show had ended off with this almost sort of fairy tale ending, and then it turned out that it was a fairy tale ending within a fairy tale ending that wasn't so fairy tale because they actually killed off the dad, which everyone loved, by the way. I feel like that was like a subconscious thing on Roseanne's part, because I think that she hated the fact that people really did love Roseanne. Really did love Dan Connor a great deal. And I mean, I love Dan Connor's character a great deal. As a dad and as a husband, and Oh, cool. Sorry, I'm seeing the couple. I'm looking at the chat, but I'm going to get to the chat a little bit later. Okay. So basically, I was excited to hear that Roseanne was going to get a reboot. And it was very well known or talked about that she was going to have that she was a Trump supporter in the wake of the announcement of the reboot. And I felt that the show was going to be an explanation, if you will, of why the mostly white working class part, or should I say not really mostly white working class, because the working class is not mostly white anymore. I would have to say that the white sector of the working class, why they voted for Trump. And I did have a little inkling of hope that what was going to happen with the show that they were going to take the storyline into them becoming increasingly disillusioned by their choice, and that the prejudices that they've developed over the last decade or so would be that they would be challenging themselves with these prejudices and things like that. But who knows if the show would have even gotten to that level, because on Tuesday morning, Roseanne, or was it Monday night, Tuesday morning, something like that. She decided to write a tweet about a former a former administrator, member of the Obama administration, which the Obama administration is former in and of itself. You know, why it is that the alt-right and everybody else is still talking about Obama. That administration is gone, but whatever. And the point here is that she went into this metaphor that that Valerie Janet is the poster child. Is the child of the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes. Now, you can't take. I didn't take that joke in any other way. She could have said anything from. She could have been Janet. Jarrett could have been the child of Muslim, well, really even Muslim Brotherhood, but Muslim Brotherhood and stark raving lunatic. She could have said a million things. Why Planet of the Apes? See what I'm saying? It's not just a name that you're calling. So you knew what she was invoking here, okay? Now, ABC went and they immediately threw themselves on the grenade and decided to cancel the show outright. Some people would say that it was a knee-jerk reaction. I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% down with the idea that ABC did it out of love necessarily for black people, or I mean, if you can almost say they did it out of outrage, but I felt like they did it because they wanted to protect the sponsors. They wanted to protect their money, their revenue. They knew that that's exactly what boycotters and what activists would have wanted to go for anyway, if they would have been outraged by long enough about what Roseanne had said. So they did what they did. Frankly, I feel like they should have just fired her. They should have, as a really huge big fuck you to her, they could have just kept the show going. What they should have just done was say, we're going to commit to the second season. We're just going to kill Roseanne. I mean, hell, either way, they own the property. They own the name of the show. They could have just killed her character off. She would still get paid, right? And they should have just hired some really good writers. I would say poach the writers from Showtime's Shameless. And you could have had a kick-ass series. Dan would have been a widower and the show would have gone on, right? But they did what they did. And, she's not making the situation any better. So it's not like I see this thing as, hey, I just did something or said something stupid. It's like if I would have called anyone a name, right? And maybe I just would have brought it over the top and said something like, I hope your mom died or something stupid like that, right? That's something stupid to say. But when you're talking about a specific person of a specific nationality, and you know that there is a history attached to a racist history attached to certain imagery and wording in order to dehumanize that whole entire group, there's no other way of looking at it. I don't see that as a mistake. So that's pretty much all I have to say about her in particular. See, the thing is that she's always been a bit of a shock jock. She's the type of person, she's one of the reasons why I had, over the years had grown to not be a fan of Johnny Rotten. Like these are people who like to talk, to hear themselves talk. They like to shock people, to piss people off, to be seen, to be heard, to be in the news cycle for about a good week or so, and then they move on. Louis Anderson, who I believe he passed away, but Louis Anderson was a friend of Roseanne Barr, and they were both stand-up comedians. And he said this about her a decade, like a decade ago. He said something like, this was before he died, basically, but I think he died, right? He died. Anyway, I don't have time to look for it up right now, but I believe he passed away, Louis Anderson. But he said something like, the thing about Roseanne was that the way she would do certain things reminded you of when a kid took a dump. When they're like still a little toddler or whatever, and they take a dump, and the parents would go, "Oh yay, you took a dump, you pooped," and the kid would smile and kind of, that's kind of like how she was, he said, and I would agree. And the thing is that if she either wants thunderous applause for the bullshit that she does and says, or she wants people to flip out. But she doesn't want the consequences if it actually fucks with her pocketbook, and if she's ultimately seen as the bad guy. See, that's the part. That's the thing that's when she starts to flip out. And if you notice, a lot of these alt writers, they all get this way. They get real indignant and angry when you actually are able to fuck with their living. Any other time, if people are offended, then they could that gives them more fuel to call you a snowflake, to call people this, that, and the other, and to continue on trying to be the gonzo, ass kicker, right? That's what they're into. But when it really does flip on them, where you mess with their paper, they get really upset. Let's see here. Oh, Strange Fruit says that Louis Anderson is still alive. Really? I would have swore he... Okay, well, I know I'm fucking show now because I really gotta find out. I hate being wrong about something, but you're probably right. I don't know. Maybe I just assumed he passed away because you are correct. He's still alive. All right. Well, sorry about that, y'all. Thank you, Strange Fruit, for correcting me on that. All right. So you know what? I'm going to go in the chat now and read everybody and what everybody's saying. I'm going to start from the top. Demography Now. That's an interesting person. I've never seen you before, but welcome. Demography Now says, the media pushes the outrage. They will do the whole. There's an uproar. People are outraged about XYZ. Sometimes it's only a few people that's pissed off. That's true. Babase says, I hated how James would shut down Michael so much. Right. Yeah. Mabasai, that's very interesting that you brought that up. But I actually thought that, and Mabasai, just in case no one knows, Mabasai is actually speaking about James Evans shutting down Michael Evans. And I know exactly what you're talking about, Mabasai, but I thought that was really good writing. James represented the no-nonsense working class, parent, period, who's always at odds with the one kid who's obviously really intelligent, learned, because they're teaching themselves, they're learning things, and so they in turn challenge their family on political issues. Well, that's exactly what happens in real life. So I actually appreciated that. But you're right, Mabasai. It's bad when people do it. I know that as a parent, I've actually done it myself, but it does happen. But if you noticed, James Evans actually learned from Michael. He would it was the one episode where Michael was in trouble because I think he challenged the teacher about history. And what Michael did, I think he wrote a report. They were supposed to be writing about a regular history report, and Michael kept hitting up wrote this report full of Black history, or like little bits of Black history. And the teacher was like, "What are you doing? This isn't what we're learning in terms of history." And he's like, "This is history. It's Black history." And James was like all on Michael. He was like, "You're the smartest kid in this family. You're not gonna fuck up your life." Blah 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 blah. And he was shutting Michael down. But then when they went and they learned some of the stuff, Michael was like, James was like, "Holy shit, I didn't know this stuff about Black people." So in a lot of ways, yeah, that was definitely something that they did, but it was a very realistic portrayal. And at the same time, they at least showed James being open to learning these things, which is the thing that I wanted to talk about, because the working class, the thing that I was getting from in terms of its portrayal in pop culture in general, has always been that we're no nonsense, common sense, but to a fault of just being closed-minded, that we can't learn or be better than that. And that was one of the things that I liked about the original Roseanne show, was that all these things that the family was doing, like the demographics of the family was changing in terms of the sexual politics, the gender politics, and they just have the two Black friends. But the point that I'm making is that she was actually challenging, and she was she was right about what she said to one of her former cast members, when they basically were all tweeting and saying, when they were criticizing what she said, was that she was building this platform to portray this one segment of the American population that everyone would never expect to be grappling with LGBT issues and gender and all that. And here they were as a family doing that in this show. And so, you can see that if she was trying to show people this, James Evans was learning about this in the TV show from his youngest son, Michael. So it just goes to show you that the working class can be better, that they can educate themselves to broaden their political consciousness. Okay. Back to the chat room. Jenny says, and demography now, I feel like people are building up their career in media I feel like people building up their career in media get overly outraged and pick a side. I love Garage's opinion, though he's always cool and has a reasonable approach. The rest seem fake. Yeah, Jenny, I think that what we're really looking at, I think that what we might be talking about is the the knee-jerk liberal reaction to things, which is also never which can also not be a positive thing or a constructive thing. The knee-jerk reaction to things is not so much about how to scientifically approach prejudice or when someone says something stupid. They do have a tendency of just throwing a label on someone and then wanting to walk away from the subject altogether. That actually doesn't help anything or anyone, because and usually the liberal approach to along those lines is to not really change society and further it, but if anything, to just say, let's not be this, and then they just leave it at that. And if you notice, a lot of knee-jerk liberals have a tendency of wind up becoming reactionary people, because all they've ever done was just react to things that they feel are bad or they feel are reactionary. And hence, I think that's really where people like Roseanne Barr actually come from. They were knee-jerk liberals when they were young, and then they wind up becoming knee-jerk reactionaries when they get older. In somewhere in between, they never learned the hard stuff, the heavy lifting of changing society and slowly and painfully learning how to be progressive and how to, broaden your political consciousness, because and I'm going to get to it later, but that's what's going to lead me to some of the criticisms that I have about the new show, or where the new show left off. But let me just finish the chat and then I'll get to that. Strange Fruit says Roseanne Barr has images of her dressed up as Hitler with Jewish burnt gingerbread men. Yeah, Strange Fruit, I want to talk about that. That picture, and I'm not surprised about that picture. It's not a secret, as you see from the cover that I used, the thumbnail that I used on my intro video for tonight's live cast. That picture is from a magazine called Hebe Magazine. Now, if you're not familiar with Hebe Magazine is a gonzo humor magazine. I don't even know if they're still in print. They're probably just online, but if you're familiar with Al Goldstein was a pornographer. He had a magazine called Screw Magazine. A lot of the people from the late 60s who sort of were part of the counterculture, but then went completely over to becoming pornographers and or gonzo journalists, which is not really necessarily related to pornography. But my point here is that that's the kind of humor that Heat magazine is rooted in. It's just gonzo humor. It's gonzo whatever humor, if you will. It's just about how to be edgy or edgelords, but they're actually funny. Matter of fact, one of our ex-friends used to be a writer for Hebe, or she was associated with Hebe. I forgot, but it is what it is. They like to be politically incorrect, but on purpose, that kind of thing. And of course, the people at Hebe are all Jewish, so the way they feel, it's okay to be this way, to make fun of themselves in that way. And it's funny because Mel Brooks is kind of like in that same vein of humor, but not as raunchy as the people over at Hebe. So Hebe thought it would be a hoot to have Roseanne on the cover. I think she was on the cover, dressed up like a Nazi and with little cookies shaped like people, sort of baked, half burnt, coming out of the oven. Ha 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 ha. Again, it's just bullshit humor. Like, I don't give a fuck. It's just to shock people. And most Jewish people aren't even really taken in by that bullshit, except for like the more old school, liberals or, whatever. But yeah, that's that picture. You're right, Strange Fruit. That's exactly where that picture came from. Strange Fruit says he didn't hide his videos. They were deleted and it comes up rules broken. I think they're talking about Tommy. Jenny Kiss says it's crazy how conservatives bitch about reacting to issues, but they do it hardcore. They sure do. Mabase says it looks like CBS ain't playing with them. Mabase says that Jenny, the reactionaries, almost all of the right ideologies about reaction. Jenny says, dude, you're so smart about the zines. Thank you, Jenny. You know what? Did I miss something? Oh, right. Oh, shit, I did. I missed a lot. Right. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Right. Okay. Strange Root says that on July 23rd, 2017, Anderson competed on an episode of Celebrity Family Feud. Yes. Strange Fruit says TNN Raw is down. Looks like CoonTube is finally enforcing the rules. Yeah. Okay, so that's where the Tommy reference comes from. Yeah, y'all. I think that we are about to see the dawn of Tommy Sotomayor at this point. I know that he lost his main channel a couple of weeks ago, and now his main backup channel, TNN Raw, is down. So it's slowly happening, slowly but surely in terms of him. Let's see. I got to that part. Just Strange Fruit says, I love Mel Brooks. Well, I do too. Jenny Kiss says, Garage, have you seen Casey Neistat? No, I only know Casey Neistat by name, Jenny, but I've never had a chance to check out his stuff. Well, Mabase says Mel Brooks is more socially conscious. Yeah, he is. But I think Mel Brooks, to me, reminds me of his humor when he talks about his Jewishness and he talks about people in general and race and like he's always been really smart about it. Like he knows what to say, how to shock, but only to a certain extent, and then he'll pull it back. But then to say, look, this is what I'm trying to say here. Like that's why I love Blazing Saddles. And Richard Pryor, I think, was the perfect person that Mel Brooks had partnered with when he and a couple of other people, when they wrote the movie Blazing Saddles. Like I love that. That was a movie that knew how to deal with race in a humorous way, throw it out in plain language, not be, touchy-feely about it, still make you laugh, and not be like completely shitty about the whole thing. You see what I'm saying? Like it's really hard to explain in words. Mabasi says, hey, Garage of Times, did you see the pic of Drake in blackface? Yeah, but I haven't had a chance to really read into any of that stuff, so I don't know what to say. I can't weigh in on it just yet. Baby Moscato says, hi, everyone. Hi, Garage. I'm back in town. Great topic. Thank you, Baby Moscato. So here's what I want to say about what I've gathered from the Roseanne show now, right? We've been watching it ever since it premiered in March, right? As a family, we've been watching it. And, there's a lot of little things in there that they hit on that I really appreciated. One, the medicine hoarding, okay? This is a real thing. This is things, these are things that we've been reading about online. These are the things that we've been hearing about in NPR, because this is where we're at right now. Nobody can afford the medicine that they need and the medical care that they need. I mean, we're at a place where it's like where don't get sick or you are fucked, right? So I love that the show was showing that. I love that the show was showing that both Dan and Roseanne, who are two people who've been working all their fucking lives, are at an age where they are kicking 70 in the ass, and she's still having to drive an Uber and do other odd jobs to make money. Dan has been doing the same fucking job that he's been doing for 20 something years, and they're not seeing anything out of it. And not to be a spoiler, but if you've seen the last episode where they had a problem in the basement, basement gets flooded, Dan just takes a crowbar, man, and he just takes it to the wall. And you can understand and see the frustration that's playing out. It was a great moment. But that's that's only a moment that you can expect John Goodman, who is one of my favorite actors, to carry. Roseanne couldn't carry that moment, but again, whatever. So I'm not going to get too much into just bashing her for the sake of bashing her. I just need to talk about what's relevant here. The show, but my overall issue with the show, right, that I have is that regardless of whatever conclusions I was hoping it would go to or what we think we're going to see, sorry, y'all, it's allergies. Hold on. whatever the show or the conclusion that I thought the show would, conclusions or whatever I would love to have seen it go to, what we're really left with is, I would almost say, is sort of like a minstrel show, right? Class wise, what I'm getting from the show is that they talk about the things that are happening in their lives that are completely fucked up. No one is to blame. It's just how it is. And let's ha ha, tee hee, ha 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 about it. You see what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, that's sort of like being a minstrel to the likes of Trump or the career politicians, both Democrat and Republican, both. Because where we see the working class at right now, both of the parties have put them there, straight up. But my point is that the show has no problem hitting you over the head with the issues that they're dealing with, but they fail to bring you to any kind of a conclusion as to why and how they got there. And instead, they replace it with, let's just good-naturedly chuckle about this shit. Now, they've got one more episode, I think, or two more episodes before this season is over with. I am going to watch them. I'm not boycotting this season anyway. And I hope that the execs at ABC, I mean, if Sarah Gilbert, who I think is a lot like her main character, is the smart one of the family, I think that she might actually have the cojones to talk to the execs and see if she can at least wrangle a spinoff. Because that was always the most interesting character on the show to me anyway. What's her character? And it should have been a spinoff, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens. But I feel like this, between the cable TV shows like Shameless, which was really based on a British show. And it's funny, it's the first time ever is where I actually liked the American version of a show more than I liked the original. I didn't like the original British version of Shameless. I liked the American version. But between that show, I think Showtime has a show called Smilf. And now there's a show called Vita, which I want to do a review on. Between these shows, what we really should be doing is patronizing anything if you know, because not everybody can afford cable. We know this. But everybody steals shit anyway, but if you're able to demand, if you will, like we should really just be saying, hey, ABC, thanks for getting rid of Roseanne or whatever, but it's probably not such a good idea to cut out the one voice that's not necessarily particularly representative. And we see the direction you guys are trying to do with the diversity. You had Arab neighbors that moved in. You have the little you have the blended family of DJ with the black daughter. You had all that going. If anybody's who's at the sort of front line of what really goes on in the demographic of America, it's the working class. It's probably not a good idea to just drop this show altogether. Just drop Roseanne. I mean, either way, she's gonna get paid. So fuck her. But try to stay in direction. It's obvious that people want to see a show of regular people. So why don't you stay in that vein? And I think that we should try to demand that more. You know what I'm saying? If not, then patronize TV shows that are doing what Smilf and what was the other one that I just fucking mentioned? Shameless are doing. Now back to the chat. Baby Moscato says, as much as I enjoyed the Roseanne show, it also frustrated me because it was also the ultimate pacifist representation of a demoralized people. Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. It became sort of like a class-based minstrel show. You know, teehee, we're poor, ha ha ha. Like, come on, man. Babase says big facts. Yep. Baby Moscato says the Roseanne show demonstrates how helpless and powerless we are as citizens. True. Jenny Kiss says that totally, Baby Moscato. I've always been attached to Roseanne because we literally had the same looking home as them growing up. They're just poor, you know. But it is fucked up what she said. Strange Fruit said she didn't say much different from the others in Hollywood behind closed doors. That's a good point, Strange Fruit. You're right. But when you come out in the open and say it, you gotta be challenged on it. And I know that it kind of goes into this thin line between when people are outraged and when people can call you out. But I think that it was right that she got called out the way that she did. But there's a difference between I'm going to call you out and tell you why you're being called out versus just calling somebody out and saying you're just a racist, yeah, and then throw an egg at them. Big deal, you know what I'm saying? All it's going to do is just push her. I mean, she's over in the right anyway, and I didn't even know prior to when the show came out that she was actually so deep far into the right as she was. I didn't know that she was so much into the whole conspiracy theory stuff. I only heard about it. And so therefore I was like, wow, I really didn't know it was that deep with her. I wanted to read. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to clear out of the screen if I do that. I wanted to read Phoenix. I want everybody to, if you get a chance, go back to my intro video for tonight's live cast and look at Phoenix's comment in the comment section. It's really good. By the way, if you get a chance, please please subscribe to Phoenix's channel. Phoenix, I love her channel. I love the things that Phoenix says. Phoenix kind of reminds me of all the the abstract free, what do you call it? Freehand. Yeah. Freehand radio that I used to listen to. Esoteric, that's the word I want to look for. Phoenix's channel is esoteric in thought and ideas. And I just say, listen to Phoenix channel, subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. I know that I am. And I just love the channel. So Phoenix had a lot to say about Roseanne, and there's a lot of, and she says a lot of good things that are very plausible that explain a lot. And I've noticed that people who have a tendency of living what they think are free lives, they kind of embrace what they think is libertarianism, right? But Roseanne is just rich. And she lives on a farm, which is not a bad thing in and of itself. But she lives this very isolated life. And then she kind of looks at the rest of the world and just gets sucked into so easily by what other people who she thinks are just like her and what they say. And it just turns out that they're just a bunch of right-leaning, gonzo libertarian weirdos who are into conspiracy theories. Like, in other words, just racists who smoke weed. Like, that's all it really brings it down to. Jenny says, not to make excuses for her at all, but she was a prostitute in her youth and had multiple personality disorders. I watched it in a documentary when I was little, because it is important to understand why people do what they do. Yeah, Jenny and Mabasai says if it's not an excuse, I bring it up. But the thing about the thing about Roseanne is that yeah, I was actually thinking about a lot of that stuff as well. Um, but I remember all of that the first time around, like back when she was famous the first time around. People were saying, "Oh, why is she so abusive to people at ABC, the writers, some of the cast members." Actually, she was not a person to. She was not a piece of sunshine to deal with. Um, People who do come from abusive backgrounds, right, have a tendency of going out in the world, especially if by the chance that they gain some power, that they gain money, they have a tendency, it's not always like this, but they have a tendency to be abusive themselves. It is not excusing them, but it is explaining where it comes from. However, Roseanne is not who she was 20, 30 years ago. If you've had all the therapy that most of us cannot afford to have, if you've had all of these things, like at some point you had to have grown. And at some point you do know what's right and what's wrong. Okay. So at some point you have to learn this stuff. Basai says, I mean, maybe I didn't pursue it far enough, but no teacher I had proposed racism as a byproduct of mental illness. I mean, maybe it's why she belts it out. Strange Fruit says, I care only of the result at this point. She's rich enough to get the, well, that's exactly what I just said, Strange Fruit. Um, Again, like I would have felt differently about this 30 years ago or however long it was. If I keep going back to how long something was, I start feeling old, but it's the truth. Um, and again, yes, I was very well aware of a lot of that stuff. We knew that she was turning tricks in the parking lot of the place where she actually worked. We knew that she went through a lot of stuff like this. She had an abusive husband. And I do believe that she suffered at the hands of her father. She brought up sexual abuse with her father. But again, I would consider those things during those times. Those times, or is a long time ago. That is years of therapy. She didn't mind spending, also dropping a bundle on plastic surgery. At some point you have to grow. That's the part where I think a lot of us are saying we don't have to have patience for this. And you know what I'm saying? Like there has to be the Mabase said, who disliked this video? Mabase, I can tell you exactly. It's the same one or two people. It's the same people who just will come and thumbs down my video simply because I posted a video. They don't listen to it. They don't care. It's not and I've come to that conclusion. And I know it's the same. It's usually one or two, and it's the same one or two people. Strange Fruit said a Satanist. So that's all I'm at. But I do think that Jenny Kiss was right in bringing that up. I do think the Strange Fruit is right. It's not wishy-washy. I'm just saying you both have some very good points. And naturally, I'm saying I recognize those things about Roseanne. Those things are true. But at some point, after so many years of therapy and so many years of having access to psychoanalytic, not psychoanalytic, psychoanalysis, and then drugs for it, at some point you're going to have to take responsibility of some of the things that you do and say. Baby Moscato says, I have to go to bed. I work at 6 a.m. I'll catch up for the repeat. Thanks. Good night, everyone. All right. Thank you so much, Baby Moscato. Oh, Strange Fruit thinks that it's I know who you're talking about, Strange Fruit. You think that it's Flint Boy. It could be Flint Boy, but I think it's somebody else. I'm not going to mention his name. Oh, you know what? I never put the. Well, it's kind of too late now. I forgot to put the link in the damn chat. Sorry, y'all. But it's getting kind of close to where I'm going to have to be leaving soon. So here's the thing. I think that the show could have been better. It had some good things to it. I like the fact that all the things that you can see that's kind of wrong with our country right now. That's actually not just wrong because of Trump. I would say that's been wrong with it in the last, well, I would say since forever. This country's always at war. So we know that DJ's wife, the mother of the daughter that he's taking care of, that he's raising, is currently in the military. DJ himself is a veteran. He's not living any better than veterans. Than one would imagine he should. None of their dreams have come true. In terms of the kids. I mean, but it's all very realistic. And I think that that's the one good thing that the show had going for it. And John Goodman and the rest of the cast. And like I said, man, I mean, it would be the smartest thing to do. The best revenge is for us to look for better shows that could, to look for better shows that could do the job better than where Roseanne left off. So let me just read the last of the chat. Strange Fruit says, I'm keeping an eye on the Nutter. Mabasai says, we've always been at war. Strange Fruit says, Star Spangled Banner celebrates warmongering. Read the entire thing instantly. Insanity. Mabasai says, nations are forged in blood and they tend to crave it. Strange Fruit says, I love Handmaid's Tale and Westworld. Those are good shows, yeah. That would be a good topic to bring up in terms of sci-fi and or rather sci-fi that has something to say. Sci-fi with a message. So yeah. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Strange Fruit, Jenny. I want to thank Mabasai. I want to thank who else was here. Oh, I want Elm City. Damn, I didn't see Elm City was here. Sorry, Elm City. I want to thank Demography Now. I'm going to have to look into Demography Now. That's a very interesting name. So I hope that all of you who were here earlier will tune in next week. I'll come up with a topic before then, and we'll talk about that. I was supposed to be talking about Harvey today, but really I don't have much to say, man. One, he's been indicted. He's going to trial, but we still have a whole trial to have to deal with. Who knows what's going to happen? He may just come out of this thing completely unscathed for all we know, but we'll see. Right? All right. I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to go ahead and sign off at this point. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for your contributions to this conversation. Without you, this, just would be me running my mouth, and who wants to really hear that? So peace, and I will see you next week. This is the Garage Autonomist.